deserted by his father, lonely and angry. His friends, a gang of older boys, thieves. At 14, his mother dead of TB. He is sent to live with his grandmother. Then foster homes. Then flight. At 16, arrested for stealing, placed on probation. He steals again, is caught, and sent to the state training school. A wanderer across the face of the land, in constant conflict with the law. Vagrancy, petty theft, larceny, juvenile offender. At age 22, the odds are against John James Mitchell becoming a productive member of society. This is both an end and a beginning for John James Mitchell. It is a logical conclusion following a difficult and complex childhood. It is never easy to say why 21 years of life have brought him to this. At 22, he is no longer a child.
Tanner, we just got this guy coming out of Greenman's grocery store. Real fresh guy. Door was busted, and on his person we found this.
Take him up to the detectives.
He doesn't know what I was doing. He just jumped on me.
Oh, he saw what you were doing, John. He caught you coming out.
I want a
of the
lawyer.
store.
I want to get that cop arrested. That's what I want.
He is, for the first time, involved as an adult in criminal behavior.
I told you, Mitchell.
What's your date of birth? Do you have a date of birth?
I told you he'd be 65 next month.
You're holding up.
He stands before society, a product of his past. He faces a difficult present and an uncertain future.
Right through windows,
John, you're in serious trouble, man. You can
What
laugh
kind of
about
trouble?
this
For
if you
what?
want to.
For visiting
being-
friends, right? Watch your hands. Gosh. Hey, watch it. Tick.
John James Mitchell, Lieutenant. Burglary, resisting arrest, man being an officer, carrying concealed and deadly weapons.
Army had the arrest report and take him back to the cell block.
A record of the charges against him is permanently made. He is permitted a single telephone call, which he does not make. There is no one to call. The angry fires of frustration consume him. He lashes out, not because he has any hope of escape, but because the hopelessness of his life seems at this moment in time overwhelming.
You're not going to replace.
John James Mitchell, in this bill of indictment number 130, you're charged.
Arraignment, the legal procedure by which the accused is called before the court to hear the charges against him.
Battery and resisting an officer in making an arrest, carrying a concealed deadly weapon, a knife. How say you, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Provision has been made for John Mitchell to have legal counsel, for under our system of justice, the rights of the accused must be zealously protected.
I advise you to call the jury. I'd like to have a jury.
detention, the jail, often called a school for crime, a cell of steel, forcibly confining John Mitchell before and after arraignment until the time of his trial. Here he will remain until bail or a judicial verdict frees him again into the community or passes him on to another confinement facility. There are 3,100 jails in the United States, and the number of persons who become acquainted with them by commitment totals more than 2.5 million annually. Created as a place of detention for the accused until justice could determine guilt or innocence, the jail has evolved into a place of short-term punishment for a variety of petty offenders. However, the problems created during the period of detention are far greater than any that are solved. Generally, without benefit of adequate personnel, plant, and treatment facilities, the jail attempts to handle its fluid and faceless population on a mass treatment basis. Our average jail counts itself successful and even progressive if its inmates get 3 decent meals a day, good emergency medical care, live in reasonably clean quarters, and if there is an absence of riots and a minimum number of escapes. Often the condition in our jails is so bad that a prisoner will plead guilty simply to be moved on to a prison. In our evolving system of corrections, one of the greatest of our current needs is immediate and drastic improvement in the treatment and processing of the accused in detention. Until tried and judged guilty by due process of law, the accused cannot be legally subjected to punitive or corrective measures. However, society must be assured of his appearance for trial, and until that time, the safety of the community must be guaranteed. Depending on where in our country he has been detained, and depending on a variety of factors over which the accused has no control, the term of detention may vary from a few hours to months or even years. The conditions under which he is held will add another ingredient into the already turbulent cauldron of his damaged life.
Did you ask the suspect, Mitchell, any questions when you picked him up?
Yes, sir. When we interrogated him, he was very uncooperative. He didn't want to give us his name.
Trial, a legal procedure basic to any progressive system of justice. To the accused, however, it is a nightmare of unrelated words and images.
Comes that way.
Officer Smith attempted to arrest.
I just received a radio call.
Evidence some hostility.
We found him very uncooperative. No, sir, he was not.
You just assumed
The arrest.
Well, he was.
Denies it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as to the charge of burglary, have you agreed upon a verdict?
Your Honor, we find the defendant guilty of burglary as charged.
Mr. Mitchell, the jury has found you guilty of the crimes of burglary, larceny, assault
With this man rests the responsibility of passing sentence. He knows that punishment alone will not prevent crime, and that revenge or retribution is not the objective of criminal justice. He knows that too often, due to inadequate probation pre-sentence reports, a judge lacks the necessary information to pass a sentence that will both protect society and create a law-abiding citizen.
About your guilt. Indeed, the evidence shows that you were caught in the act, as the phrase of the street goes. It is now my duty to impose the judgment of sentence. Mr. Schodel, as counsel for the defendant, John James Mitchell, I now ask you to speak on Mr. Mitchell's behalf.
As Your Honor knows, I have not known this man for a long time, but I have come to know him through this trial. However, Your Honor, I would point out for the court's consideration that Mr. Mitchell is only 22 years old, that he's had a hard background, a person for whom I would urge the court to consider that there is a good chance that this man will improve with time, and would urge a sentence which will give him some incentive to improve. I think the court should consider placing him on probation. And
probation, an alternative to imprisonment. The system by which the offender is returned to the community under controlled supervision. Today, as we compare the rising costs of managing our prisons with the fact that many offenders may return to prison again and again, probation remains the single most effective and economical method of dealing with the problem. The effectiveness of probation depends upon the ability, the training, and the skill of the probation officer. He can counsel through individualized ways or through groups. He can help the offender find employment and work with the employer through vocational rehabilitation. He can bring the strength of family and friends into being. It is also possible to bring resources from the mental health field to supplement the efforts of the probation officer. Through a probation system that is truly effective, we can hope to make the offender productive in the community and able to support both his dependents and himself.
It is now my desire and my duty, before I impose the judgment of sentence, to ask you to speak on your own behalf. Mr. Mitchell, what would you like to say on your own behalf?
Go to hell.
Mr. Mitchell, that was an unwarranted remark. It is unfair to the court, it is unfair to the jury, and most importantly, it is unfair to you yourself. I shall impose sentence on the most serious of these crimes, the crime of burglary. And my judgment of sentence is that you will be confined in the state prison for a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 10 years.
He has failed to develop a motivation for change within himself, and the institution has failed to create that motivation. Boredom and routine are his main occupations as the months and years move on. At some point during his period of imprisonment, he will become eligible for parole, a term much praised, much criticized, and often misunderstood.
To see you, this is an informal hearing. You have a right to say anything you want to in your behalf. You can also ask us questions if you want to. Now, briefly, would you tell us what you did to get in here?
Well, I broke into a store.
Since a great majority of offenders will be released eventually, parole offers the best possible method of providing a transition between the restricted, regimented world of the prison and the free, open world outside.
To be out late at night, or was this just on one occasion?
Well, I didn't. I could only stay with a friend or two, you know, and so I wasn't living anywhere really, and
At ease, John. We won't hurt you.
Well, I see, John, your pattern of behavior has been quite unstable. You've had
John is questioned exhaustively on the subject of how he has spent his years in prison.
Now, you were committed to this institution some time ago. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've accomplished in the time that you spent in the institution?
well, I've been doing a lot of thinking.
Well, have you gone to school, or have you learned any particular vocation that you're interested in?
I'll tell you what I would be interested in. I've been giving a lot of thought to it. I thought maybe I'd be interested in photography, you know. But they don't have no courses like that here. So it makes me feel, you know, I mean, I wish they did. That's what I've been thinking.
Thinking isn't quite enough. It's well that you're interested in something, but...
The unasked question is, what has the institution done to train and rehabilitate this young man in these years? Too often, the offender faces his parole board in exactly the same condition he was in upon entering prison.
Improve your education, because to become an expert in photography, you've got to do a lot of reading. And from what we can see in your background here, I don't know whether you have the proper preparation for it.
Well, like I say, I've been thinking about photography. I try to do some reading. I got some books on photography, and and sometimes I do some writing too.
Of course, John, to be a writer, you also have to have a pretty fair education. And I think this is an area in which you could have utilized more of your time. Don't you think so? If you look back over yourself now the last 3 years?
I wish there were some courses in photography here.
I noticed.
This session will last 25 minutes, and in this split second of a lifetime, John Mitchell's immediate future will be determined. The alternative to parole is outright release to the community upon completion of sentence without any control, guidance, or supervision.
Ted, what do you think?
These men will hold 300 similar interviews in the course of a single month. They are overworked, and too often, they are not provided with the essential knowledge necessary for accurate evaluation of the offender.
As he should have. He's a young man, and opportunities are available, and he talks more in terms of what he thinks he wants to be rather than in making concrete preparation for the future. What have you to say, Bill?
Parole is a most valuable and important tool in our developing system of corrections. To achieve its best potential results, both parole board and parole officer must be highly qualified and must be able to release the offender at the most appropriate time. They must be able to weigh in the balance the progress made by the individual and the long-range protection of the community.
It is very difficult. John, the board has considered your case here, and we believe that you have not as yet made enough progress to release you to the community. Our decision is to refuse parole and review your case in 6 months. We hope that in this 6-month period you will show more initiative in partaking of the programs that are available to you in this institution. In arriving at our decision, we felt that this was the first time that you were in a major institution. You need a little more time. Now, is there anything you'd like to say to us at this time?
Failure with John Mitchell in dollars and cents is prohibitive. It is reflected in the cost of crime in the United States, estimated at $27 billion annually. The cost in human terms, to his victims and to himself, is even greater. A profile of John Mitchell's future looks like this. He will spend 14 more months in prison. He will, upon his release, commit another serious crime and will be returned to serve a longer sentence. He will be over 35 years old when he is released from his second term. He will probably waste his life in the shadow world of the criminal. He will contribute nothing to our world. He will have nothing of value from all the days of his life. The facts of his life present to all of us an urgent challenge to provide the funds, the modern progressive institutions, the qualified personnel in sufficient numbers, to upgrade our jails and our prisons so that the wide contrast between the best and the worst is reduced and eventually eliminated, to strengthen and support probation and parole so they can function at their very best, to employ our ever-increasing knowledge and skills to bring about a truly effective system of corrections. The answer for Johnny Mitchell and the hundreds of thousands of others he represents lies with us, his fellow citizens.